Internet stings are the new crime du jour. Let's start with a brief history of the Internet. The concepts that led to the development of the Internet can be traced back almost 40 years to academic papers written in the early 1960s on what was called packet switching networks. In 1969, these ideas matured into a working prototype network called ARPANET. Although this network had only 4 nodes or computers connected to it, it was the forerunner of today's Internet. In 1971, 15 universities and research institutes were connected together, and the system was upgraded to handle seemingly large 64-node network. In 1973, the first European computers were connected in England and Norway. Meanwhile, the key technologies of the Internet, Telnet, FTP, and Unix, were being invented in the early 1970s. Ethernet, invented by Bob Metcalfe, who founded 3Com, would later become the standard for local area networks, or LANs. Telnet allowed remote interactive access to other computers. FTP, or File Transfer Protocol, enabled the transfer of large data files over the network. Unix, invented appropriately enough by the phone company Bell Labs and enhanced at UC Berkeley, became the software backbone of the Internet. Later, Sun Microsystems commercialized Unix. The dominant use of the Internet in the 1970s was an early version of email. In 1979, Usenet was invented to carry discussion forums, the primitive form of today's chat rooms. This was the beginning of the more public side of the Internet, as contrasted to private email and telnet sessions. Usenet would later grow to its present volume of more than 10,000 separate topic areas and more than hundreds of gigabytes of data. That's the equivalent information of a large public library that is accessed every day. Sexual topics quickly became the largest single volume area of Usenet. Communication and discussion of human sexuality has continued to be an important use of the Internet to this day. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the Internet grew exponentially. The number of hosts in 1974 was 1,000. In 1987, 10,000. In 1989, 100,000. 1992, the number of hosts or computers with permanent IP addresses surpassed the 1 million mark, and it's well beyond that today. This doesn't even count the millions of people who dial into the Internet via modems. In 1993, Mosaic, the precursor of the Netscape browser, took the world by storm and gave birth to what is now known as the World Wide Web. And the rest, as they say, is history. Today, the Internet links more than 170 countries worldwide, with over 1.5 million domain names and over 40 million hosts, underscoring the new central role of the Internet in American life, and indeed the entire world. A 3-judge federal panel in Philadelphia in June 1996 called the Internet the most participatory marketplace of mass speech that this country, and indeed the world, has ever seen. However, as popular as the Internet has become, some distorted misconceptions have developed around its use. Because of the Internet's participatory nature and society's interest in sexual topics, the police and the general public have mistakenly begun to look at the Internet as a vast playground for adults who are attempting to sexually prey on children. Well, there can be thousands of actual acts of sexual molestation each day across the nation within family households. The perceived Internet molestation becomes a media circus that ends up terrorizing parents, and yet there's only a few instances by comparison compared to those molestations that occur every day within family households. These alleged Internet predators cause parents to become afraid of nameless, faceless phantoms. More afraid of these phantoms than they are of real live family members who statistically pose a far greater threat to their children. This fear and anxiety becomes even more irrational when one involves homosexuals. Parents look at their children's monitors in the bedroom as a means for a homosexual to kidnap their children and recruit him or her into a homosexual lifestyle. This form of homophobia is at the heart of the parents' fear of the internet and the hysteria that endangers everyone's constitutional freedoms. The response of the various police agencies to this fear and hysteria, some of which they have created themselves, is the Internet Sting operation. Here's how the Internet Sting process got its start. Let's suppose that the police want to create a sting operation to catch a person who fences, buys and sells stolen property. The police pretend to be burglars who have stolen property to sell. The property is not actually stolen, but the police pretend that it is stolen. The fence buys the allegedly stolen property from the police. In this scenario, it is factually impossible for the fence to buy stolen property from the police since the property is not stolen. However, even if a person attempts to commit a crime that is factually impossible to commit, he's guilty of the crime of attempt. The fence would therefore be guilty of attempted receipt of stolen property. Now, changing the venues, let's suppose that the police want to create a sting operation to catch a molester, but this time online. The police go on the internet and pretend to be a 13-year-old girl. They advertise in their online profile that they are a minor looking for sex with an adult. They enter online chat rooms using this profile and chat with others in the sex chat rooms. As a suspect then engages the police officer who's pretending to be a minor in the sexual chat room, and eventually a real-life meeting is arranged. The suspect is told to bring lubricants and condoms so they can have a good time. The suspect arrives at a hotel as requested by the police with condoms and lubricants in his possession. At the hotel, the suspect is arrested for attempted child molestation. It is an attempt because it is factually impossible to commit a child molestation on a 40-something-year-old police officer pretending to be a 13-year-old. How serious is this? In many states, all attempted crimes carry a sentence of 1/2 of the prison term of the named offense. In this case, child molestation, in most cases, a lewd act with a minor under the age of 14, carries a severe prison term. Therefore, an attempted lewd act with a minor under the age of 14 carries a prison term with a number of years. Further, the defendant, if convicted, must register as a sex offender every time he or she moves on his or her birthday for the remainder of his or her life. Next, let's talk about child pornography. During this sting chat with the cyber minor, really a specially trained police officer and the internet user, the cyber minor asks that the user, now a suspect, send him pictures of himself. The suspect sends a picture of himself clothed. This isn't good enough for the cyber minor, so he asks again for special pictures. The suspect sends a nude of himself or of others. The suspect will now be charged with attempted sending of harmful material to a minor with the intent to arouse, appeal to, or gratify the lust or passions or sexual desires of the adult or of the cyber minor. In most states, a charge like this carries with it numerous years in state prison. Each photograph must also be charged as a separate offense, adding years to the sentence. Now, consider this. What if the adult and the cyber minor engage in cyber sex? Again, the suspect might be charged with sending harmful matter, the conversation, to the minor. The law would not make an oral conversation harmful matter, but the prosecution's theory is that the electronic transfer becomes material. What if the cyber minor asks the suspect to send him more pictures? This time the picture depicts a minor engaged in sexual acts or simulated sexual acts. The suspect is now charged with several sexual exploitation charges. In most states, this offense carries 1 year in the county jail on a first offense and 3 years in state prison as a subsequent offense.